I never thought I'd be the guy to get played like this, honestly. I've always prided myself on being pretty straightforward, trusting, maybe too much. My wife Emily and I had been together for nearly 8 years now. We met in college, hit it off right away, and somehow I convinced myself she was the one. She was fiery, smart, with a sharp tongue and a sharp wit to match. But lately, things had felt off. She started coming home later than usual, saying she was busy at work or hanging out with her best friends. At first, I thought maybe it was just stress. She's a manager at a marketing firm, so I figured she was just slammed with deadlines or some big project. But then I noticed the little things. She'd be secretive about her phone, flipping it away like it was something dirty. She'd delete messages, turn off her notifications, and always had the excuse that she didn't want me to worry about work stuff. Still, I let it slide. I figured maybe I was just paranoid or reading too much into it. The first real sign that something was wrong, it was around our anniversary. I had planned a nice dinner, nothing fancy, just the two of us, maybe a bottle of wine, reminiscing about our first years together. But Emily canceled last minute, saying she was stuck at work, which was her phrase when she was hiding something. I was annoyed, but I let it go. She promised to make it up to me, and I believed her. That night, I had a strange feeling. I decided to check her phone, something I normally wouldn't do, but I was feeling suspicious. I had a gut feeling she was hiding something from me. I waited until she went to bed, then quietly unlocked her phone. That's when I saw it: messages. Not just casual texts, but flirty, suggestive ones. The kind you don't send your best friend's brother unless you're trying to hide something deeper. Her messages with Jake, her best friend's younger brother, were filled with innuendos, emojis, and plenty of "can't wait to see you again" types of lines. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long had this been going on? I scrolled through more messages, trying to keep my breathing steady. I saw plans to meet, to go out, even explicit sex that made my blood boil. The worst part, she had lied to my face about being busy all these weeks. That bitch, she had lied to me while she was screwing her best friend's brother behind my back. I couldn't believe it. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily, smile at me, pretend everything was fine? I stayed up all night trying to process what I'd found. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to tear the house apart and scream. But I knew I needed to be smart. I needed a plan. I started gathering everything: screenshots, messages, any proof I could find. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She thought she was so clever, so smooth, thinking she could hide her little affair forever. But I wasn't going to be the fool in this story. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was heavy, my stomach was in knots, and all I could think about was that damn phone. I couldn't believe she'd been cheating on me, and with her best friend's brother, no less. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly pretty damn angry. I kept replaying the nights I'd come home late, the times she'd brushed me off, the way she'd suddenly become so busy. It all clicked into place like a puzzle I'd never wanted to see completed. I knew I couldn't confront her right away. Not yet. I had to get my ducks in a row, figure out what I wanted to say, and decide what my next move was. Still, I was burning with the need to know everything. I decided to dig deeper, to find out just how long this had been going on and how deep it went. I started snooping around her social media, her email, her texts, anything I could get my hands on without her catching me. It was a dirty game, but I wasn't going to be the one caught off guard again. Within hours, I found enough evidence to confirm she'd been sneaking around for at least a few months. There were late-night texts, secret meetups, even calls she'd deleted from her recent history. I noticed she'd become increasingly dismissive of me, more irritated, more bitchy, like she was already feeding into her new life, whatever that was. She'd always been a bitch about her busy schedule, but now I saw through her act. She was just hiding her true life, one filled with lies, sex, and deception. That evening, I decided I'd had enough. I waited until she got home, irritated at myself for not confronting her sooner. When she finally walked through the door, she was all smiles, fake as hell, I knew. She tried to act like everything was normal, kissing me on the cheek, asking how my day was. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "We need to talk." Her smile faltered just a little, but she kept her bitchy facade. I laid it all out. I told her I knew about her affair, about Jake, about the sexts, the secret meetups. She sat there, blinking, trying to deny it, calling me crazy or paranoid. She said she was just bored, that it meant nothing, that it was a mistake, she'd stop. But I wasn't buying that bullshit. I told her I had everything documented, proof that she'd been lying to me for weeks. Her eyes narrowed and she snapped back, "You're overreacting. You don't know what you're talking about. I was just having fun, that's all." I felt a flash of rage. How could she be so callous, so dismissive? I told her she was a lying, manipulative bitch and that I couldn't trust her anymore. She scoffed, said I was being dramatic, that I was jealous or insecure. But I knew better. I knew the truth. The woman I dedicated my life to had been screwing around behind my back with her best friend's brother, and she thought she could just brush it off. That night I didn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. I was furious, betrayed, but also hurt. I realized I'd given her my trust, my love, my life, and she'd thrown it all away with a few secret texts and stolen moments. I kept asking myself how I hadn't seen it sooner, how I'd been so blind. But deep down, I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. Everything had changed, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, or if I even wanted to try. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and that sick feeling in my gut that wouldn't go away. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I'd uncovered the night before. The betrayal was like a punch in the chest. I couldn't believe she'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe even longer. The woman I trusted, the woman I shared my life and my future with, she'd been screwing around with her best friend's brother. It was too much to process all at once. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I couldn't just blow up and scream. I needed to stay composed and get all the facts straight. I dragged myself out of bed, knowing I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I fixed myself a stiff coffee and sat on the edge of the bed, thinking hard. I needed to see her reaction when I told her I knew, see how she'd try to spin it, or better yet, finally crack under pressure. She came home later that afternoon, trying her usual bitchy attitude, acting like nothing had changed. She flopped onto the couch, flipping her hair, giving me that "what are you gonna do about it" look. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "We need to talk." Her smirk was annoying, but I pressed on. I told her I knew everything, the sex, the meetups, the lies, and that I'd been snooping around her phone and social media all day. She sat there, legs crossed, pretending to be surprised. "What are you talking about? You're overthinking things. I'm just busy with work. You're paranoid." "Yeah, right," I said. "Don't bullshit me, Emily. I've got proof. I saw the messages. You've been lying to my face for weeks." Her eyes flickered, but she kept her cool, which only made me angrier. I told her I wasn't stupid, that I knew she was cheating with Jake, her best friend's brother. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and snapped, "You don't know what you're talking about. I was just having a little fun, that's all. It doesn't mean anything." Her words made my stomach turn. How could she be so dismissive? As if the fact she'd been screwing around with another guy didn't mean anything. That she could just lie and I'd never find out. I lost my temper for a second, raising my voice. I told her she was a selfish, lying bitch who didn't care about the damage she'd done. I said I was done trusting her. I told her she'd ruined everything and I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. She looked at me with that bitchy, arrogant smile like I was the one overreacting. She kept saying I was jealous, insecure, that she was just bored and needed some fun. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was so brazen, so unapologetic. I looked at her and saw the woman I'd loved for years turning into someone I didn't even recognize. I felt the sting of betrayal so raw I almost couldn't breathe. She kept trying to brush me off, thinking she could manipulate me once again. But I wasn't going to let her. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I couldn't stand looking at her anymore, knowing what she had done. That's when she finally got pissed. Her bitchy side really came out. She threw her hands up, yelled that I was overreacting, that she was entitled to have some fun, that she didn't want to be stuck with a boring, jealous husband. I watched her become this cold, manipulative version of herself, and I realized I was done. Done trying to save what was already broken. I had spent years building trust and love, only to be betrayed by someone I thought loved me. That moment was the end of everything I thought I knew about her, about us. And honestly, I felt more alone than I ever had before. After the confrontation, everything shifted. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, trying to process what I'd just heard and seen. Emily kept acting like she hadn't done anything wrong, like I was the crazy one for getting upset. She kept insisting she was just bored, and that it was all a mistake, like that somehow made it okay. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I knew her game, and I knew she'd been lying the entire time. The worst part was how dismissive she was about everything that mattered: our marriage, my feelings, the years we'd shared. Her attitude was, "Oh, you're overreacting, it's not a big deal." But to me, it was everything. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly devastated. For the first time in my life, I started questioning if I even knew who she was. How could someone so bitchy, so manipulative do this to someone who loved her? It made me angry but also deeply sad. I knew I had to make a decision. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to pretend it never happened. But deep down, I knew that wasn't possible. Trust was shattered beyond repair. I told her I needed space, that I was going to stay somewhere else for a while. She threw a fit, calling me crazy and overreacting, but I didn't care. I wanted her out of my sight, out of my house, and out of my life if that's what it came to. In the days that followed, I started planning my next steps. I contacted a lawyer, got my finances in order, and looked into what it would take to file for divorce if I decided to go that route. I knew I wasn't just going to walk away without consequences. I had to protect myself, emotionally and legally. Honestly, I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I'd finally seen her for who she really was, and I knew I couldn't stay with someone who lied so effortlessly, who was so dismissive of the love we built. Throughout those few days, I kept replaying everything: the signs I missed, the lies she told, her bitchy, manipulative attitude. I kept asking myself how I hadn't seen it all sooner. How did I miss her flirting, her secret meeting with Jake, her dismissive tone when I confronted her? The pain of betrayal was sharp, but there was also a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been blind, trusting her blindly, and she'd taken full advantage of that. I decided I'd tell her I was leaving for good. No more pretending. No more fake smiles or "we'll work it out" talk. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, to see how much she'd damaged us both. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I knew it was necessary. I wanted to be free of her lies, her manipulations, her bitchy attitude. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to rebuild my life, alone but honest and true to myself. The day I finally told Emily I was leaving, it felt like I was ripping off a bandage that's been stuck on way too long. I sat her down, calm but cold, and laid it all out: how I knew about her affair, the proof I had, and that I couldn't stay with someone who lied and cheated. Her reaction: typical bitchy arrogance. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and said I was overreacting, that I was just jealous or insecure. She even dared to call me paranoid, like I was the crazy one. I told her I'd had enough of her bullshit, that I was tired of being played for a fool, and that I was done pretending everything was okay. I said I was leaving, that I didn't want her in my house anymore. She just sat there, looking at me with this contemptuous smirk, as if she thought I was weak or stupid. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Not that day, not ever. I packed a bag and walked out that afternoon. In that moment, I felt like I was finally free. Free from the lies, the betrayal, the bitchy attitude that had become her default. I didn't know where I was going, honestly. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in the same house with her, not after everything she'd done. I felt a weird mix of relief and heartbreak. The relief because I was finally out of that toxic mess, and the heartbreak because I'd loved her once, and now that love was just gone. Living alone after that was a shock. I'd spent years building a life with her, and suddenly I was back to square one. I felt raw, betrayed, and more alone than I'd ever felt before. But I also felt a strange clarity. This was it. This was the end of our story. I realized I'd have to rebuild from scratch, learn how to trust again, maybe even learn to love myself again. The worst betrayal had come from the person I trusted most, but I wasn't going to let it break me. I knew I'd survive this somehow. In the weeks that followed, I started to heal. I kept my distance from her and from the memories of what we used to have. I focused on myself, on getting my head straight. I saw a therapist to help me process all the emotions, the anger, the sadness, the confusion. I knew I'd never forget what she did, but I also knew I couldn't let it define me. I had to move forward even if it hurt like hell. That's what I kept telling myself. I was better off without her, even if that truth came with a heavy price. Looking back now, I realize how much I learned about trust, betrayal, and what it really means to be with someone who treats you like an option instead of a priority. If I could give any advice, it's this. Don't ignore the signs and don't settle for someone who constantly belittles or dismisses your feelings. Love isn't just about the good times. It's about honesty, respect, and loyalty. If those things are missing, there's no point pretending everything's fine. Because in the end, you have to choose yourself over someone who treats you like garbage. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize that this whole ordeal has changed me in ways I never expected. I used to think love was enough, that if I loved someone enough, they'd never do me wrong. But what I've learned is that trust has to be earned, and betrayal cuts deeper than I ever thought possible. Emily's little affair with Jake, her best friend's brother, was a wake-up call. It showed me that some people are just not worth the pain they cause. I've come to understand that I deserve better than someone who lies with that kind of ease, who dismisses my feelings and manipulates me into thinking I'm crazy. That kind of betrayal leaves scars, but it also teaches you what true loyalty and respect look like. I've realized I was blinded by love, but now I see clearly. I know I need to prioritize myself and rebuild what I lost, trust in myself, my judgment, and my ability to find happiness again. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone in my shoes, it would be, pay attention to the signs early. Don't ignore that nagging feeling in your gut or the little things that don't add up. Because when someone lies to you repeatedly, they're not just betraying you, they're betraying everything you stand for. And no matter how much love you have, if it's not reciprocated with honesty and respect, you're just setting yourself up for heartbreak. I've learned to pick myself up, to accept that sometimes people change, and sometimes they're just not who you thought they were. Moving forward, I know I'll be more cautious, more aware. I'll never let anyone treat me like an option again. I'll rebuild my life piece by piece, and I'll do it without someone who doesn't truly value me. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is my own self-respect and happiness, and I will find it even if it takes time.